We're coming out. We love love and want to talk about something we normally steer away from. Much like politics, being queer can be a no-go dinner conversation. But October is a great time to talk about scary conversations. As we celebrate Coming Out Day and World Mental Health Day, we want to talk to all of our fans about how to be the best ally you can be in a world that chooses anger over peace.
Hi guys, this is Bree, your host. Welcome to You're Not Doing It Wrong, where we talk about the many troubling topics of today's millennials and discuss how to navigate your next quarter-life crisis, because we're all too busy thinking about what we should be doing and not what we want to do.
And I'm your co-host, Allie. Welcome back to Season 2.
Did you know that in Texas, there have been literal cases of CPS investigations against parents who support trans teens? The Trevor Project reports that 1 in 10 LGBTQ youth attempted suicide just last year. Every day for LGBTQIA plus young people, it can feel like a battle, and we wanted to not only highlight the negative experiences many face, but also talk about how to celebrate queer love.
So, for those of you who don't know, your beautiful hosts are queer. We've been dating for approximately 8 years and actually have experienced a lot of things together. Like, we met in college, and then obviously now we've been out of college for like 4 years. Yes, we're getting old. And during that time, it's been a very complicated, not necessarily history, right? But like experience.
Yeah.
Mostly because I've been out since I was about 13. And I'll say out and in and out.
In and out. She was the burger joint.
I was the burger joint. Mostly because when I originally came out, my family wasn't really supportive of it, and it was a very different time, I think. And so, because I was so young, a lot of it was difficult for people to, accept. I think a lot of them, well, I say a lot of them, my parents just assumed that it was a phase, like most things, and that I'd grow out of it. And maybe it was like my friends that were influencing the way that I thought I was, or who I loved, or who I thought I loved, whatever. Mm-hmm. And so, I've been struggling or, growing into my identity for now 14 years. I'm 27. And so I've had a lot of time to process my emotions around being queer and my identity, and just kind of like really figuring out what that looks like. And Allie was a late bloomer, as I like to say.
Don't call me that.
Yeah, you were a late. I mean, I literally saw some TikToks on this earlier that was like, my late blooming lesbians. Like, people come out at a very, everybody comes out at their own time and on their own timeline. And I think there are a lot of people out in this world that are maybe still in the closet. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. I kind of just wanted you to talk about your experience with coming out, right? Mm-hmm. In celebration of Coming Out Day, and kind of talk about like what were your difficulties, or, things that you're still kind of working through as we navigate this.
Mm-hmm. I feel like I'm just like a very private. I don't like to answer questions. I don't like for people to pry and ask questions. I don't like to talk about my emotions. So like, to me, it was just difficult because I always felt like people were going to have questions or like judge. And I don't know, like I just kind of kept it private. Like, we had told some friends here and there that we were like close to, or that kind of knew but didn't really know, kind of a thing. But I didn't tell like my family until literally last Christmas.
Very difficult conversation, especially with knowing some of my history. Mm-hmm. Right.
Yeah, Brie like freaked me out. She was like, my mom beat me.
Yeah, we had a very...
And then I was like, I gotta wait until I'm old enough so where my mom doesn't beat me.
I don't think your mom ever would have actually beat you, but...
Now I'm 27, she can't beat me.
Shout out to Alma.
She's probably listening. She's our number one fan. But
she's getting ready to beat you this Christmas just for this conversation, this like, announcement on the like.
That's funny.
I think, in general, we've also struggled to tell friends, and a big part of that is we met in college, and so a lot of the friends that we did had were mutual friends, some of which were actually friends before we started dating.
Yeah, and also like another part of that, which I always feel awkward about, is that we like joined the same sorority. That got into my head a lot because we joined it before we were together. Like Brie joined it first, and then
Yeah.
I joined it after, and then we like got together like later. And so to me, I was like, oh my god, these people are gonna like be like, that's weird, or just be
Yeah.
uncomfortable with it.
There's no regulations within our sorority that says like we couldn't do it,
Mhm.
right? But when you're joining something like a sorority, a lot of the time you're following very heteronormative expectations, and so
And now I'm like, our sorority sisters don't care. Like
No,
one
they
of them
don't.
literally helped us plan our proposal, or helped Brie plan the proposal,
Yeah.
and let us stay with her in Hawaii. And she was like, I love you guys.
And it was an amazing experience to have someone supporting me through that. But I do think so. Some background. I'll give some background, even though Allie doesn't like to divulge background. But so
Careful.
careful. What am I careful with?
Don't give it background.
What do you mean? I was just gonna give some background to like how we met and things like that. So me and Allie did not know each other prior to college. I met her at a like freshman orientation camp.
It's called Fish Camp.
Yeah, and we obviously
Stayed in cabins in the middle of Texas.
we actually got booked in the same cabin
Mhm.
that weekend. I always like low key forget that, but then I remember this because
I just remember this is what I remember. Well, one, when I actually talked to you, I thought your tattoo was cool because you were like one of the only people I knew that was 18 and had like a
oh
massive
my
tattoo.
god,
And I was like, oh my god, how cool.
everyone thought I was like this bad girl. Like,
Okay,
and
I
then
wouldn't
like
go that
no,
far. Calm down.
Then they
Calm
met
down.
me, and all I did was cry for like the first year that I was away from
Yeah.
home. So
And then I thought it was funny because the packing instructions for this camp were like,
oh my god,
pack sheets
embarrassment.
or a blanket and a pillow, and Brie packed
I packed
one
my
sleeping
no.
bag.
It wasn't a sleeping bag.
Wait, what?
I packed a pillow pet in my pillow. Some background on that is actually I didn't really get into pillow pets, but like I said, this
Didn't
is so
somebody
stupid.
give it to you?
My ex actually.
So scandalous.
Yeah, very scandalous. My ex used to give me pillow pets all the time, and so
Which one?
doesn't matter.
I'll block it out.
No. So, anyways, I had one, and that I carried around anytime I traveled. So that was the one I took with me, obviously,
As her pillow.
as my pillow. Which it's if anybody's ever had a pillow pet, like it supports a child's head. It does not support a grown ass person's head. So it was super uncomfortable. As were the mattresses in this cabin.
Yeah, they were like super
hard.
plasticky, hard mattresses.
Plastic mattress, and I also
like the same one you get in the dorms.
didn't read. I don't know where these instructions or when they were
They sent you an email.
I don't remember reading this. I did not take sheets. So I slept on a fucking plastic mattress this whole fucking weekend that I was there, and I took one little blanket, like
It was so thin. It was
like the
tiny.
blankets that you would like put on a couch.
Like a throw blanket.
A throw
It wasn't like
blanket,
an actual like blanket.
And honestly, more embarrassingly, I think that blanket was like a princess blanket.
Yeah, it was like a children's
It was a
blanket.
children's blanket,
And the
because
pillow
that's
pet.
what we had at home. How effing embarrassing! Now thinking about it, but I was a poor kid,
And that's
I was
where
a
we
poor
met.
kid from the Bronx. No, just kidding.
Shut the fuck up.
No, but
J-Lo.
like, I just took whatever the fuck I had at home. I wasn't going out of my way to go buy like new sheets and things.
Anything.
Well, my mother doesn't have twin sheets laying around, so whatever. You could tell I was like the kid, like stand like on the outskirts. Like everyone probably was looking at me funny, but I actually remember that because Ali remembers it, and I remember her looking at me while I was like trying to throw shit on a bed. And
I was like zoning out.
"Why is this girl looking? What does she want?"
She was just zoning out.
And me being big headed as I am, I was like, she's pretty cute. She probably thinks I'm cute too.
I
But
did
then
not.
I remembered, that I made a commitment to myself that I would not be dating in college because I was like, I need to focus on school and I need to get through school. I was totally lying to myself because within 2 years of knowing each other, here we are.
I'm gonna cut that out. Just kidding.
Why would you cut it out?
Well, anyways, so we met in college.
So that's where we met. We didn't actually get close until like later on through like freshman year.
It's probably until the end of freshman year. Brie was depressed freshman year. She got a lot
It really
going on.
was. I mean,
Have we mentioned
just have a
about
lot of-
your freshman year
what about it?
that your dad was in jail?
No.
Oh.
No, we have not.
Did I cut that out?
No, I mean, that's fine. I mean, we're talking about mental health, right? So
So
I did. I suffered through a very, I think, severe depression.
Yeah, she was
my
really
first semester of freshman year.
like girl would sleep all day, every day.
I had a really terrible sleeping schedule and had to convince myself to make at least one outing to like a social club, right? And once a week, outside of classes?
One time she came to the MSC, which is the student center, because I would go there to eat every day because I hated my roommate. So I'd spend like all of my time sitting at the student center eating.
Yeah.
And this was second semester and I had a really late class. Well, it wasn't really late, but it was late for me. Anyways, so I would sit there until my late class. Well, one time I texted the group and I was like, hey, I'm getting food. Can everybody or whoever is not in class pull up and get food? Because that's what we would do. We would say like, oh, I'm sitting in this section, pull up, can we get food, whatever. I was sitting there and Brie was like, yeah, I'm on my way, which I was shocked because she literally never came to these things. She would literally lock herself in a room depressed.
This is so not true. I made such an effort to show up most of the time.
That is a lie. And anyway, she showed up and was literally like already crying because she had spilled her coffee on the way.
Oh my gosh.
The MSC.
It's just like the one inconvenience.
She was like, I spilled my coffee. And then I was like, oh. And then she sat there.
I got a venti coffee and literally, I don't know, my dumbass.
What did you do? Like run into a trash can?
I ran into a fucking trash can and it made me like, I guess like the bump like scared me. So I like opened my hand and the venti coffee just went. And then not only did it fall, but it like splashed up and got like all over me.
Yeah. And then she started crying because she had to write this letter for court for her dad. And I was just like, what do I do?
This was already second semester. Really, the severe depression was mostly my freshman year, first semester, mostly because I think the transition was very harsh for most first-gen students. It is. But for me, even more so because I was dealing with a lot of familial drama, as per usual, but even more than normal.
As per usual.
As per usual. It's never ending. But so I was dealing with a little bit more. I'm the oldest of four, so that really did affect me in the sense that I felt like I was abandoning my siblings. And
don't cry.
No, I mean, it's hard. It's hard to talk about because I feel like during that first semester, it was just a lot. It was a lot to deal with. It was a lot to like transition. And I think a lot of people struggle with that. But anyways, that being said, Ali was there to support me through a lot of that. I
didn't do much supporting. I literally would pat her on the back and be like, oh, it's okay.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, Ali was the worst. Like we had somebody like sobbing in the backseat one time and I had to pull the car over to switch spots with her just so that the person wouldn't jump out the fucking car.
If we can't already tell, I don't do well with tears. Like people cry and I literally like freeze. I'm like, okay.
So y'all can imagine how our relationship works.
The Brie cries and I just say, it's okay.
Yeah. Well,
I'm getting better. I feel like I'm getting better.
With me, yes. In general, no.
Oh,
I'm just saying. We're in a very honest relationship. Anyways, we didn't really get close until like the end of our freshman year.
Yeah.
Although Ali was like attached to my hips, but
that's wrong. She was attached to my hip
dorm, and
I had no car, and I was like,
yeah, and I was like, oh my god, this girl will not leave me alone.
Technically, it wasn't me. It was you know who. We had another friend that would literally be like, her and I lived on the same side of campus, and then Brie lived on a different side of campus, but we both hated our roommates, and Brie lived by herself, so she would be like, let's go to Brie's, and then I would think it was weird because I'd be like, did you text Brie? And she'd be like, no.
I mean, even coming out to them was interesting because they had to literally pry that out.
It was her. She literally was like, okay, well, first of all, don't get it twisted. We all knew. You like,
it's pretty visible.
You meet Brie and you're like, oh, she's gay. You're gay.
Granted, freshman year,
swore she was bullying people.
That is so rude.
No, but you really did. You'd be like, no.
Well, you could have maybe assumed I was bi at minimum.
No, girl.
I'm really offended right now. I said I was in the closet yet again. I did struggle a lot to come out to people as I met them, especially around that time. I was 18. At that point, I had still not fully come out to my mom, obviously, because like I came out and then she threw me back in. And then, no, seriously, she was, and it was
and
just,
she locked it.
It was like a reoccurring thing. Like I would, obviously I had and continued to date people, and it was always like a conversation that would come up, and she would get angry with me and then be like, are you gay? And I'd be like, no, why do you have to keep asking me that? Even though she herself knew, right? Like,
yeah,
it just was more like if we don't talk about it and I don't have to tell you that it's true, then maybe we can just ignore it and it'll just like, fly through the cracks and we won't talk about it. And I say this all because like that continued on, right? Like those habits continued on. Like people would ask me and I'd be like, no, why would you say that? And my mom has come around since then. Like she's She's supportive to some
I
extent.
don't know if that's the word I would use.
She's learning to be supportive. Okay, she buys me a lot of rainbow shit.
It's the rainbow for me.
And it's like, I was talking to my brother about this recently, and he was literally like, it's just the only way they know how. They're just barely learning.
Because we were
Like,
making fun of one of
deal
her
with it.
aunts because she sent us like this video of these girls getting married, and then in the background it's like those smoke bombs that go off, but it was rainbow. And she's like, oh my god, this would be so cute for your wedding. And then I was just laughing because I was like, why does everybody send us fucking rainbow shit? Like, it pisses me off.
They just don't know how to like be supportive.
They're like, you're
outside.
gay? Rainbow.
Rainbows.
Taste the rainbow.
Taste the rainbow. Skittles.
Don't come for me, Skittles.
And so, like, I don't know, like, the trauma of all of the family stuff and like trying to come out and then being placed back in the closet for a really long time just like made me feel very unsafe in coming out to people. Made me feel unsafe because I was told, like, if people find out who you are or the way you feel, or you know that you like women or whatever, they're going to stop being your friend. They're going to think you're gross. They're going to think, you know, they're going to beat you up. Like, I was instilled with fear from the beginning. And, you know, I see it to my mom's point now because she's like had conversations with me now, and it's just like traditionally that's just, you know, what they know and that's what they've done. And in general, she was just kind of like, I wanted you to have that fear because I didn't want you to like experience those things, you know, firsthand, and then like feel worse about it not knowing that that was going to happen. But most of my friends, I'd say, I don't think I lost any friends from being queer. Like, a lot of people knew and they were supportive. And when I was in high school, everyone knew because I was very open and public about my relationship because that was normal. And I never felt like I lost any friends or anybody looked at me differently. At the time, at least in high school, like, still kind of thought I was bi or just like wanted to be bi rather than being a lesbian, because I think it made me feel more comfortable.
It was like easier.
It was easier, you know, especially with labels and stuff. Like, you're just, and I think this happens to a lot. I've like seen and heard and read a lot of like comments and stories about how people kind of like experience that queer levelness, right? Like, you start off as bi sometimes and then you find out like, no, I'm lesbian. And mostly it's because of that fear, right? Like, you're like, I don't really know if I want to label myself like that.
Yeah.
I don't know if I really want to like commit to that label and like completely swear off men. And even now, right? Like, I consider myself a lesbian. I'm engaged to a woman, but I think in general,
I am too, but I consider myself bi.
Right. But I think in general, like, I've talked to a lot of people about this and like learned a lot more about sexuality and identity. And I think sexuality is fluid. And in general, like, just because I label myself a lesbian doesn't mean that in the future I wouldn't. I mean, of course not, right?
Excuse me?
I'm getting married. But like, in general, when I think about it, you were to pass away or something, like,
and you wouldn't live alone for the rest of your life.
Allie swears that I would just like die alone.
Right here,
she
right
would be
now.
like,
There was this TikTok.
I might as well myself immediately.
TikTok Bree sent me that was like when your wife dies and then you hear they come back from the dead because they hear someone tell you she would have wanted you to be happy, and it's like, oh no, the hell I wouldn't. And I was like, that is me.
Allie.
That is literally me. I'd be like, girl, you could be sad until you die and you come to the other side.
My life is over immediately. Like,
over.
But my
just
point
die
being,
too.
all of this to say that like, people are people, right? And like, you fall in love with love. You fall in love with people. You don't fall in love with like a person's parts. You know, at least that's the way I feel about everything. Like, just supporting like other people who are trans or androgynous or non-binary, whatever. Like, I really do feel like people do fall in love with people. Like,
yeah, I saw this TikTok about like souls and how being queer is the highest form of like, I don't know what they said, like spirituality or something, because your soul has no gender. And they say that there's that thing where it's like you meet each other in every lifetime, or like in a past life, you like souls travel together, right? So like if you're together, you were connected somehow in a past life or whatever. I don't know if people believe in that, but like I do. And so I thought that was interesting because I'm like, oh, that's cool. And then I had a dream that I was with this guy, but I like knew it was Bree in the dream. And I was like, oh, in a past life, we were like together, but you were a boy.
But I was a boy.
Yeah.
She has some weird dreams. Yeah.
So
No,
to
but I
that
do
point.
think, like, you know, you fall in love with the person, you fall in love
Mhm.
with the way that they treat you and the way that they care for you. And that's truthfully, like, at the end of the day, the way I feel about being queer. Like, now, you know, knowing my identity and being very confident in who I am and what I am. And also understanding that whether people choose to fall out of your life, right, and choose not to continue relationships with you, is completely like their opinion and their loss.
Yeah.
I think previously, like, I didn't understand that. And so it's nice now to be able to fully, like, understand myself and be able to explain myself. I think for a really long time I wasn't able to truthfully, like, talk about something that I didn't understand, you know?
Yeah, I think that's the hard part with like younger kids too, or like people who are in the beginning stages of their like identity. It's just hard because they don't know how to explain themselves and they're so young, and like, yeah, it can be tricky. But I was gonna say, like, to that point, like, just seeing all of our sorority sisters when we posted that we were engaged comment and just be like so supportive, it just made me feel better because I was like, oh, I always think about like what people are going to say or what people are going to think. And then Bree's like, you care too much about what people think, which accurate. Right. But I'm
True.
like, oh my God, they're going to judge us, or they're going to like be like, that's weird. But most of them were just like, oh my God, congratulations. Like, I'm so excited for you. And that was like, I don't know. I don't know how to explain it. That
It was
was
satisfying. It was,
yeah, it was like a
it was
good
a
moment.
validation.
Yeah.
It was a validation.
But I was
to,
like, nobody really cares. They're just like happy that you're engaged.
I mean, and I think, like, listening to people talk, it's just like, they're just like, we've gotten some really amazing messages since being engaged from friends that maybe like weren't fully aware that we were together, but like probably suspected. But it's like they, like, point blank come out and say, like, I'm just happy to know that two people that I love are able to share love together, because you guys are amazing people and you deserve to be with amazing people. And so, like, that to me is so empowering to know that people, like,
Oh my God, she's crying.
look past that, you know, they look past like all the non-progressive,
Yeah.
you know, like, and there's people that I have that are friends with us that are like, we're super religious, right? Like, they themselves are super religious and still in some way have found a way to like be supportive and be not just supportive, but like
Excited.
excited.
Yeah.
Like excited, but also just like accepting. You know, that's the
a good
biggest
word.
thing. Accepting that this is like love, and it doesn't mean that it's any less than what they would have expected had we been in a heteronormative relationship. They don't treat it as any less than it should be. So, I don't know. I said this video will not be posted, so
I will be posting this video.
no video posted.
We'll just blur Brie out.
Yeah, you can blur my.
Just crying.
This is a hard thing for me.
Yeah,
to talk
it's a hard thing for me to talk about too, so I don't talk about it. I feel like I get uncomfortable. I don't like to answer questions. I don't like when people ask me questions. So I'm just like, oh, it's fine. Like,
Well, like, okay, so I've been talking most of the time.
and that's fine. We can continue.
No. So yeah, like, what's your take on that? Like, I've talked about labels. Like, I don't necessarily love them, but I understand why they're there, and I think it helps people like understand themselves and their identity and feel more confident in that too.
I used to be really uncomfortable with them because I just felt like it was like what you said. Like, once you label yourself with as something, then people only see you as that thing, or they think that you can't change or go back, or, you know, whatever, right? And I think that there
Or
is
like if you're lying, or like, I don't know. It is.
I think it's hard. Like, in the generation that we grew up in, it was like you're either gay or you're straight, and there was no like in between. There was no sexuality is fluid. There was none of that education. It was just like you're gay or you're straight, right?
Yeah.
And to me, that made me feel uncomfortable because I was like, oh, I don't really feel like I fall into that like category, right? Or there's only two categories, like what the heck? And then it started being like, oh, there's this whole community, there are all these different labels, and I was still uncomfortable with it because I'm like, I don't know, I don't want to say I'm one thing and then have people judge me for that, or feel like maybe that doesn't encompass who I am, or like I don't even know enough about it to say that I'm this thing or that thing, you know? It was just that I was literally dating a woman. So I'm like, what's the label for that?
What's the label for just dating a woman?
What's the label for that?
And
What do I do?
That's like another thing, right? Like, I'm Allie's first queer relationship, right? So
Yeah.
it's interesting, different for you.
Yeah.
By the time I met Allie, I had already been in and out of different relationships with other women. So to me, it was just kind of like, Okay. And most
But I
of
think a
those-
lot of it was just like in my head too. Like it was like people are gonna judge me and say that, or they're gonna treat me differently. And then like when we started slowly telling some friends and others, it wasn't like nobody cared. Like,
Yeah.
And now I always say that I love like the younger generations because they just don't care for labels and they don't even care to say anything. What's that one show where the kid is like, is it Love Victor?
Yeah.
Not Love Simon, but the show. That's
it's
Victor.
Love Victor.
Where he like talks about like why do people even have to come out anymore, or like you should have to come out if you're straight too, and they do this whole montage of kids being like, "Mom, Dad, I'm straight."
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
Yeah, I do.
And then I just like resonated with that because I'm like, oh, that is so true. I feel like younger kids don't come out anymore. Well, they might, but they feel like they don't need
it's
to.
It's just not a big announcement.
Yeah.
You know, it's like I'm dating a woman.
Yes.
And then that's it. It's not, hey, I'm a lesbian, or now I'm gay, or Mom and Dad, I'm gay. It's like, no, like, hey, Mom, like, this is my girlfriend. And like, I even thought about that, right? Because like, as I mentioned, and I've told Allie this too previously, but I had a very terrible experience coming out, obviously. My brother, who is 3 years younger than me, has come out since then. And my parents, like I said, gave me a really hard time when I first came out. My brother was, I guess, like 18, maybe 20 years old at the time he came out. And trust me, when you, like Allie's talking about, like, you take one look at Brie and you could tell, like,
you knew
with Jose just
Shout
as
out
much.
Jose, you're gay.
Shout out to Jose, you're gay. And we were queer
I knew the
besties
moment I met
from the
him.
moment we were born. No, just kidding. No, but
You were
like,
born 3 years apart, dumb. She's acting like they were twins.
might as well have been. Anyways, like my parents have been very supportive of him. They've tried a little bit harder now to understand and kind of really like take that in. And his experience was very different by that time too. Like my parents allowed him to
Brie
move
like
in
took
his
the bullet
first.
for him.
My parents went as far as letting like his partner move in with him in their home, you know? And so then that was like a big like, whoa, right? Because we're talking about like people are so scared to like come out to people because of situations like I mentioned previously with my situation. But then now as we progress through society, more and more people are willing to talk about how their kids are gay and talk about how, or to be supportive of it too, right? And like there are family members now, not within my, you know, like close immediate family. There you go.
Their extended family
who have posted and like, hey, here's my daughter going to homecoming or prom with their daughter's girlfriend or whatever. And I'm like, that's the kind of visibility that's needed to make it so much less taboo, right? Because I feel like with us growing up, right, there wasn't social media.
The only one.
Yeah, there wasn't any social media. There wasn't, you know, it's just kind of like community talking and whatever. So people just assume, right? Like the same way that you're like, oh, I got in my head about like coming out because I just don't want people to judge me. I feel like parents are the same way, right?
I still feel like that to an extent too, because like, so after we got engaged, that was like hard launch. Like my parents and immediate family knew, but it was like my extended family didn't know, right? So then I was like, okay, well now everybody's gonna know, so it is what it is, because obviously we're gonna get married, and I can't be like, this is my best friend.
This is my friend.
This is my friend. So to me, it's like going back to what you said. Like I feel like I'm still the only one, so it was like an uncomfortable situation that I was like, everybody's gonna look at me differently, or they're gonna ask questions, and I don't care to answer them or explain myself.
But I think that's like what I'm getting at, right? Like as we move forward in this new generation and like just in general in society, there's so much more visibility over queerness and like being out. And I think that's really important because it creates community across the board where people are like, oh, well, if so-and-so's daughter is able to come out and they're supportive of it, like maybe I won't get that bad. Because I think before it was like taboo in the sense that like even parents were scared, right?
Yeah.
Like, shit, people are going to think that I did something wrong.
Yeah.
My kids are gay. Or like people are going to judge me as a bad parent because I can't control my kid and now they're queer. I don't know. Like, so now it's like different because people are just kind of like,
it is what it is.
It is what it is. I support my kid. I love my kid. So yeah, like I think it's important. Like, this is why this episode's happening, right?
Yeah.
Like it is uncomfortable conversations. These are scary conversations. It's scary to share. It's scary to like share experiences. But I think it's so important because it can help another person feel comfortable in their identity. And I'm not gonna like name names or anything, but most of our friends know that this friend of ours, like, he's gay. His dad passed away a couple years ago, and it was so heartbreaking to hear him say, like, my dad's never gonna know, like, who I actually was because I was not brave enough to, like, come out before he passed away. And I'm like,
that hit me
again,
hard.
I feel like for most gay people this is true, but like people know, right? People know. Maybe your dad actually did know, but of course,
He probably
in the
know.
culture,
You meet him, you know.
yeah, like in the culture, especially Latino culture, like, and I'm sure most cultures actually, like, it's just one of those things, like, si no se ve, no se dice, right? Like, we're not going to talk about it because there's no point in talking
Like
about
the
it.
military,
If it's
don't ask,
uncomfortable.
don't tell.
Don't ask, don't tell. Yeah, it's just like, if you're not going to publicly be out and about it, like, we don't got to talk about it. Just be you, but like, in the
Quietly.
shadows.
Like, be you
Yes,
quietly, girl.
Be you quietly.
Sit in the corner.
But it's also very damaging, I think, because you're teaching somebody that, like, their confidence is not there in who they are and who they truly are, because you're just like, yes, you can be yourself, but
not all the way.
Well, not all the way, but also like only around certain people, because it's not good enough to show the world. Like, it's not
That's like
brave
there's
enough.
that show, Sex Education. I think it's on Netflix. Was it on Netflix?
Yeah.
Where the guy in it, the best friend, he plays the best friend.
Oh, yeah.
He is gay, and he comes out to his
name, but yes,
I can't remember his name. Something with not an O, because the main character's name starts with an O.
Eric. I think his name's Eric.
I think that's the guy he's dating.
No,
is it him?
I'm pretty sure it's Eric.
Well, Eric comes out to his family, and the mom is like, don't care,
supportive.
like, love you, whatever. But then they go and visit their extended family in Africa, right?
Yep.
I think they're from Africa. And she's like, around your grandma.
Like,
You're
you're not allowed to dress or express
flamboyant.
yourself.
Yeah, because he's very like feminine in the show. Like, he likes to wear like
Makeup,
eyeshadow,
lots of color,
and like dresses and stuff. And she was like, but when we're here with your grandma, you're not gay.
Yeah.
And I thought that was
like, he struggles with his religion, right?
Yeah.
Because he's also very religious. His family's very religious. And I think after he's like more publicly like out.
I don't want to spoil the show.
Well, spoilers, so if you start it off. Fast forward. But yeah, like, he struggles with it, and he struggles with like his church accepting him after the fact. And I think that was also like a really beautiful story.
Last season, yeah.
It just goes to show like the number of different challenges that you can overcome, and like, or that you have to overcome, right? Like, it's like extensive. Like, I wouldn't say I grew up very religious. My family was never super like in church or anything, but I had friends that were very religious, and so I went to church a lot, and I went as far as like doing Bible study. That's like always my fun fact, which I think is hilarious because people look at me and they're like, "What?
But you're gay."
But you're gay? What? No, so I was like
kidding.
a Texas study Bible champion for.
She had medals and everything.
I had medals. I had trophies. I traveled all over Texas to do it, and so it was a lot of fun. I just like trophies.
She just likes to win.
I just like to win. So yeah, like, I did Bible study for a really long time. I went to church, and it was a very like conservative church. And those friends, like, after I came out when I was 13, my mom decided to share my whole news with the entire world, hoping that maybe it would fix me. And those people turned against me to some extent. I feel like they, those were people that were like my, like, one of them was like my best friend, a daughter, and then like the family was always very supportive of me, always took me to church, always like was around and invited me to things like family things, and then that just completely shut down for me after I was like out at 13. I was a bad influence at that point. I was hanging out with the wrong crowds according to them. So yeah, like, they just were like, good luck to you. We'll see you around. We don't want to keep you around, because their daughter was my age as well, right? So the last thing they want is for me to convert their little angel or something. So yeah, I just kind of like.
Well, I think that's very like of the times too, like, that there was this stigma that you hang out with gay people, you're literally gonna like turn gay or something, like.
Yeah, which is crazy now, because we have like so many straight friends. Like 90% of our friends are straight.
Yeah, yeah, we do. We have a lot of straight friends,
and then we have a lot of friends that are like, they're queer, right? But they're still in heteronormative relationships. So I think that's interesting to me too, that I'm just kind of like, in what world does somebody being gay affect the other person being gay or choosing to be in a gay relationship?
Like on religion, I don't know. I didn't grow up very religious, but I feel like I have a lot of religious trauma because where I lived was really religious and judgmental. So I think that kind of like bled into me being like, I don't want to tell anyone because these people are going to judge me. So to me, it was just like uncomfortable because when we went to college, my parents were still living in that town. My brother was like still in school there.
Yeah.
So it's just like, I don't want to like cause any discomfort for them because it was a very small town and like small town people talk. But yeah, I think to me, it was just kind of like the stigma that I'm like, even though I didn't even talk to most of those people anymore, like there wasn't a lot of friendships that I took with me to college except for like a very few of them. It was still in this back of my mind that like people in this town talk and they're going to talk about me, and my mom works at the school and like they're going to talk to her, and like I don't want it to be like this whole conversation, which I'm sure that it was. Like I thought about this the other day, and also okay,
probably is now.
It's not that serious because I'm like, who the hell stays up or like is going around talking about this random girl that you went to high school with? But if you know,
does happen, but
it does happen because I was gonna say like do that, you know, like these, you know, there
people you see on Facebook and like updates.
Small towns are just, we should do a whole episode on it because you talk shit about a lot of people and like you see things and you're like, oh my god, did you see that Ali got engaged and it's like to a girl or whatever. So I was like thinking after he posted the engagement, I had some people that I didn't realize still followed me on Instagram that I went to high school with, and I was like, ew, they're like liking my post, they're probably talking about me. Anyways, I don't know where I was going with that.
Well, all that's to say, Ali came out
last Christmas,
right? Okay.
Well, to my family. Most people, well, some people knew. Like I don't know.
Well, I'll just put your first official. I said your official coming out was last Christmas.
Yeah.
So that's crazy, right? To think like it's been years.
Well, what pushed it was that Brie bought a house and we were like sharing a bedroom. And so I was like, if my family comes over, I don't want to like keep pretending that we're not together anymore and like move my stuff around. And like,
it's funny because like you've said this before, but like once you came out, your mom was like, yeah, I kind of knew.
And I was like, what?
I mean, it's kind of like, and they were roommates, right? Like, no, it's kind of like
they were roommates.
We'd been roommates since like,
well, since we left college, like,
well, we were literally living together by like senior year, and then we moved into a house a couple years ago.
We had separate rooms.
We did have separate rooms. We kept all of our things separate. But it was,
I had my own room. I had my own bathroom. Brie had her own room and her own bathroom.
So I guess you could say they were roommates.
Shut up. But so anyways, I was just kind of like, it's got to happen because, you know, I'm getting old and like we want to get married because we had kind of talked about like getting engaged at that point and like, you know, moving somewhere different. And I was like, I can't just like move across states with this girl that's just a friend.
I mean, you definitely could. I don't think anybody would believe you, but
yeah. Well, I mean, I know that there are some friends that do like move. They're like, oh, I moved with my friend.
That they've stuck together for 10 years. That sounds totally believable.
Exactly. And so I'm like, there's no way I have to like let everybody know. Yeah. And yeah, I'm old. Like I was 26 because my birthday's in January. So I turned 27 in January. So I was like, I'm almost 30. I need to like get my life moving.
That's crazy, but word it like that.
I was old.
I will also say that like me coming out was not a personal decision. I mean, I was 13, right? Like who's 13 thinking like I'm going to come out? I mean, there are people, I'm sure.
More kids nowadays.
For sure.
Yeah.
If they have supportive parents.
I don't know. I want to talk to like kids that are younger.
I mean, the stats still show that there's still a very high number of like kids who have unsupportive parents, especially in our state of Texas, unfortunately. Your stat that you mentioned earlier, the 1 in 10 of suicide, like those are really bad rates in Texas. I would love to move out of the state.
Yeah, we have been talking about moving.
It's just not queer friendly at all in any way. And so I think that it really just also depends on like where you live. Like you mentioned, like small towns.
Yeah, like I think if you live in different areas, it's harder because it's like such a stigma. Like I think even back to high school, I think there was like 2 people that I knew that were like openly gay.
Yeah. I didn't necessarily grow up like very I'll say like I feel like the city I grew up in is very conservative, but my high school wasn't. Like there was plenty of other people that were
Yeah, all
also
her friends
out.
were gay.
All
Just
my friends
kidding.
were gay. We were all gay. It's because it's like a disease and it like transfers. If you didn't know,
Yeah, it's because they hung out with Brie and they became gay.
I turned them all gay just by being friends with them. No, but so that was like the interesting part, that I feel like a lot of it was that my mom also felt like the city itself was very traditional. And I say that because even now going back, I feel how conservative it is compared to like where we live now in San Antonio. Our city's a lot bigger, so there's a lot more queer people. There's a lot more just
I didn't realize how big of a queer population there was until we moved here. And then I was like, oh, this is kind of nice. Like, there's a lot of gay people here.
I think San Antonio in general is just not very traditional. They like to be more,
which I found shocking because
new, innovative. Like
it's old.
Yeah.
And it's also a military town. So I just thought it would be the complete opposite. And then we moved here and I was like, oh, this is nice.
Yeah. No.
Yeah.
I just think people are so much more like, they have more to do. It's like what you're talking about, right? Like people who are like in small towns have nothing else to do than to talk shit about other people, because that's all there is to do.
That's accurate. Yeah, that's true. That's very
true. I feel like that's kind of how my mom felt too. Like when we were in Fort Worth, it was just kind of like, oh my God, I'm in trouble. Like it wasn't even like I'm gonna be in trouble. It was just gonna be like, I'm gonna be embarrassed. Like you're gonna embarrass us as a family. And it sucks because it's like I said, I didn't necessarily choose to come out. It just kind of happened. Like there was like instances, right, leading up to this. I'm 13, obviously, is trying to figure things out. And like at some point, my grandma almost saw me kiss somebody. And that was mad embarrassing because it was just kind of like a, oh my God, I think I just got caught. But it didn't actually happen, right?
Mm-hmm.
So she just kind of like blew it off. I'm sure she probably had a conversation with my mom about it later. And that was probably awkward, but oh well. And then I actually got caught because my mom went through my phone. So my mom was a crazy mom when I was younger. She wasn't as crazy with my other siblings, but like I regularly got in trouble and like she would go through my phone. And so one time I actually did get in trouble. And I was out and about, as we've talked about, using cars at 13. And
it was a wild life you were living.
I really was. No, but anyways, the time that I did that it all came out was literally I got in trouble with my mom with her phone and was like, what the fuck is this? And it was like text messages between me and another person, because you could obviously tell it was like not a dude.
Because of their name?
Yeah, probably because of their name.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like I could be like, oh, it's another guy. Like, no, it was like another girl. Like
she was like, hey, she was, hey girl.
Hey girl. Yeah, but I think you can also just tell, because I think I even tried, like, obviously when she went through my phone, I was like, no, it's not what you think it is. It's like, it's so-and-so's cousin that I'm talking through her phone. And my mom was like, what?
No.
Like, this is the worst fucking lie you've ever come up with.
I mean, you were 13, so.
Yeah, and I wasn't a good liar, but I am now. Sneaky, what is it called? Strict parents make sneaky kids. No, I don't really lie anymore. There's no reason to, but you know, I did for a really, really long time. So when I got caught, it was like things just got blown out of water. And so I was literally like prohibited from seeing these so-called gay friends, right?
Because they were going to make her gay.
Because they were going to make me gay.
By sitting next
I was like moved schools and they were
my
like,
God, that's so extreme.
And I had no communication with anybody. So like I wasn't really supposed to like log on my Facebook or like my MySpace at the time, I guess. And
damn, that ages us.
Yeah, it does, right? I only had MySpace for a few years, so whatever. But I wasn't able to like use any of that. And then my phone got taken away. I had a secret phone for a little while and then I got caught with that.
Where did you get a secret phone?
I bought it. It was like one of those prepaid phones, which I don't know if they sell anymore.
I think they do.
But you could like pay like
at the store
$50 and you'd like have a prepaid phone like where it had
50
minutes
messages or something.
So I used that for a while. And then after that, I was just like, well, I'm screwed. And yeah, so anyways, I got like basically disconnected from the entire society for a while. I got moved schools and I absolutely hated it. Went to another deep depression, as you can probably suspect. It got so bad that like when they moved me schools, like I had a whole a teacher reached out to my mom and was like, is your kid okay? Because like we're kind of worried. She wrote a really dark article or like essay and we're a little worried about it.
But it reminds me of Emma's.
I was living in my own movie, guys, and I say this all the time. Like I feel like I'm a movie star in my own movie.
Oh my God.
Like I've had such a great, not great, but like interesting story.
It reminds me of Emma's brother.
Yes, one of our friend's brother also is queer. he actually
he wrote an email or like something to his teacher that was like, oh no, like you weren't in school today, I'm so sad, I'm gonna kill myself. It's not funny, I'm so sorry. And so they literally were like
he has to go to therapy.
yeah,
He
so now
must
he's
go to
in
a counselor.
therapy because
he threatened to kill himself. I mean, I'm glad that they take these things so seriously though, because like I don't think we took it seriously.
He's still in
enough.
therapy, like it's doing
rightfully so. I think therapy is great for
Shout out
anybody, especially queer people, which tying again back into the mental health piece, like I wish I would have gone to therapy. I wish I could have like talked to somebody about all of these issues like so much sooner, because I had nobody else to talk about other than friends that were also 13 and had zero good advice most of the time, because all they did was encourage me to like sneak around and do things I wasn't supposed to. And struggling with your identity at that young of an age is like really, really hard. I feel like if you don't have the right kind of people to talk to or anybody to talk to, then you're stuck. You're literally just like running circles in your head, because you're like, am I the one in the wrong? Am I doing something wrong? Because that's what people are telling you, right? Like, well, the people that you think you love and you trust.
Yeah.
But you come to find out like not everybody thinks the same. Even though that's like the person, like it's like your parents, right? Your parents teach you what's right from wrong. So if your parents are telling you what you're doing is wrong, it's like you're gonna believe it's wrong, and you're gonna like always feel like it's wrong no matter what. So like you have to kind of like know to talk to other people that think differently, and they're able to like give you that kind of advice, especially because your friends are just gonna continue to tell you like it's okay, yeah, or they're just not gonna get it, right? Because like I feel like when I try to talk to friends about it when I was at that age, like everyone was just kind of like, oh, that sucks, and I was like, it's a lot more than just that sucks. Like it is literally like this is all I think about. Like there's nothing else I can do about this situation. I have no control over my situation. The only person I can control is myself, and I don't even know what to do.
I think now too, like I realized that there's a lot of, I don't know, because I didn't feel like that was a thing back in my day. Maybe it's like a small town thing. I don't know. But like there's LGBTQIA like clubs now or support groups in schools.
And I think that the high school previously when I worked there, they actually had like an after school program for kids.
And I feel like that's beautiful because it's like you're able to find not only other people your age that are dealing with it, but like adults that maybe have a little bit more insight or can provide some resources, because it's like
I think the biggest thing is like parent help too, because I think like it's very hard to have those conversations, especially at the young of an age, to have those kind of conversations with a parent. So that's why I'm like saying like a therapist or like somebody who's also an adult that can kind of have like conversations with them to talk them through some of these things. You don't see it enough, or you definitely didn't see it before, but I'm hoping like now things are changing and
I hope so. I mean that's what I've seen. I don't know if that's like a thing.
I don't know, because like when you look at the stats aren't very promising and like what's developed in the progress. But I feel like when I talk to other people and like hear their stories now, like there is a little bit more support. I think in general, like I said, the overall sentiment in society has changed, right? Like there's still a lot of hateful people and a lot of people who think that being queer is wrong, but I think general society is just kind of like we've come so far as to have gay marriage legalized. Like that's big. Like that only happened, I think, when I was like a sophomore in high school.
I know.
And at the time I didn't even like when I first came out at 13. Gay marriage was not legal.
Well, I was gonna say we mentioned in the last podcast, but we're rewatching Secret Life of the American Teenager, and they literally talked about gay marriage becoming legal in that show. And I was like, wow, I was watching this like in middle school, and this is like so crazy.
And the crazy thing is like when it happened, right? Like when there was a huge announcement and gay marriage was legalized, I think I was like a sophomore in college, or we both were. I don't think I had even thought about that. Like I was so concentrated.
Sophomore year of college?
It really, I think it was. Well,
I don't think so.
It was legalized in other states, but it became a national law, like across the United States, that you could get married. There were certain states that you could like get married in, that they legalized it within their state, which I think California was like one of them, but it wasn't like nationally recognized. So that was the crazy part, that I was like, I didn't even think to myself like, oh, I'm never going to be able to get married. I'm never going to be able to have kids. Like, I think maybe my mom might have thought that far ahead, but like in my mind, I was just kind of like, I'm not thinking about that. Like, I'm just thinking about like right now, myself, like what I want right now.
Yeah. You don't really think about it. I don't think I started to think about it. I worked with this boss in college at the nonprofit.
Yeah.
And she was married to my professor's daughter. And that was like the first time I felt like I met not only somebody that was queer and like married, but like also had supportive. Well, I don't know about her parents, but like her in-law, I guess you would say, yeah, like her mother-in-law, because she wasn't her mom, she was her mother-in-law, was like all supportive. Like she ran a magazine in the town and they like published their wedding in the magazine. And she was like, yeah, it was the first same-sex wedding we published in the magazine. And beautiful. Like she's like, she talks about the daughter-in-law like so highly, like she spoke about her so highly. And I was like, that's beautiful. That's my mom now. She's like, I love Brie. Like, she wants to adopt Brie. She wants Brie to be her daughter. She loves Brie more.
Yeah, and that's the other thing. Like, even in the relationships that I was in way before I met Allison, like,
don't use my full name.
You're right. No, like, I just feel like I had never been in a relationship where it was like openly public, right? First and foremost, to like more than just people that we went to high school with, or like parents that were actually supportive. Like, I was with another girl for about 4-ish years, and her mom was like hated me. Like, she loved me before she found out, and then like as soon as she knew, she was like, I hate her. She can never come around. You should never talk to her again. Like, and it just continued that way, and it was impossible to even like maintain an actual healthy relationship in that way because it was always in secret. Everything was always in secret. Everything. Like, so how do you function in that aspect? Like, you really can't function in secret.
Not fully, yeah.
Yeah. And it was terrible, especially at that young of an age, right? Because it's like you have all these adults just like, ugh, you're a terrible person.
Yeah, I think it like does a lot for your mental health too. Like, it's really damaging in the long run because it's like, I don't know, we should look up studies of that, or we should have looked up studies of that about like confidence and, you know, self-doubt. And
I mean, I don't think I need a study to tell me that, right? Like,
she's like, I hate myself.
I fucking lived it, and I am the study.
That's so true. That's so true.
Yeah, like, I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like, I feel like it took me a really long time, even up until like maybe mid to late years in college, to truthfully just become myself, to truthfully be okay. Like non-conforming in the way that I dressed, in the way like I didn't cut my hair
until senior year,
and I absolutely hated it. As soon as I did it, I was like, oh my god, I look like a boy.
And now it's her whole identity.
And
she's like, I gotta go get my hair cut.
Shut up. And like, yeah, like all of that was really damaging even to my confidence. Like, I feel like I was just kind of like, I'm ugly now.
Or even like wearing dresses, like to different events and stuff, she'd be like, I have to wear a dress, and I was like, but you don't like
or
dresses.
I have to wear like a blouse, which I was like, it just doesn't feel
she's a polo girl.
like me, you know, this doesn't really like, this isn't me. So it was always like, you're also performing. It's like a performative act of like trying to fulfill this identity that you don't necessarily feel like you are, you know, or like, and that's the other thing. Like, I like to talk about that because I feel like as a masked lesbian, like, as a whole different layer of an identity, right? Like, not only are you a lesbian, but you're also a mask presenting lesbian. It's not that I want to be a boy. I still am a woman. I still want to be a woman, but people expect women to look a certain way and to act a certain way. And I just don't feel like I have to do that anymore. Like, I still want to be confident as a woman and still be a woman and just be who I am. Like, that's okay with me. And I feel like that took me a really long time to get to.
That's true.
It just feels more me.
It does.
I wanted to mention, like, kind of tie that into like work and stuff, and like how that plays a part. I think as you get older and stuff, you know, coming out, and like we've talked about the different layers of coming out, right? Like, coming out to family is one thing.
That can coming out to friends is different.
Coming out to friends is very different. I think friends to me was always easier because that's just what I was comfortable with, and a lot of my friends always knew, and so I just always felt like if they're really your friends, they're gonna like love you for who you are, which is crazy because you would think like your family would be.
Sorry, not laughing at Max, who's like,
you know, he wants
throwing himself on you.
And then the third layer being like in professional spaces, and I feel like that has been the biggest like code switch, right, for me as growing into my own. And then as an adult, like, I think in the beginning, even when we first graduated, I was still like, ooh, like, my bosses like me, and I don't really necessarily feel like I want to talk about my personal life or the fact that I'm dating a woman or plan on marrying a woman or anything like that. Like, obviously at that time we weren't talking about marriage just yet, but I just feel like in general I was still very like secretive about my personal life. And now it's like I'm 27. I work at a huge corporation now, and I feel like they have a CEO that's a woman, and their training in general, like just like the first few weeks that I was there, like talked about like respecting queer people, respecting people in the workplace and their values and like the way that they feel and their loved ones. And that was like so empowering for me even now to be able to just talk about my relationship or my personal life and not feel like a lashback. Right. And I don't necessarily feel like anywhere I've worked in the past like few years when I was here, like would have made that same or had that reaction where they would have been like, ew. But it's still like this fear, right? That you're like, I have to make sure that nobody changes their opinion about me, especially because it's like, that's your job. Like if somebody finds out like you're gay and like it doesn't like that, like they could literally, it could backfire and you could literally get fired for no reason.
Well, that's discrimination.
It is, but I mean, it happens, right? Like we know it happens.
I was gonna say, like for me, I think so. I'm very like feminine and like the way I dress. Well, not today. I'm wearing a cap.
She put on her queer fit today.
Shut up. We got these hats when we went to Fort Worth, and I was like, let me wear my hat
Mine's
today.
backwards. You can't see what it is, but they're very cute.
Mine says Fort Worth. Anyways, I feel like people assume that I have a boyfriend or like a husband.
Yeah.
Especially when I was teaching, like it was always, well, even way back to like, I worked at a newspaper for a little bit and they were like, oh, do you have a boyfriend?
Oh my gosh.
And I was like, no. And I wouldn't say like, I have a girlfriend or like a partner because I just felt uncomfortable. Like if they assume, then I feel like, one, never assume. Just say, like,
that's
are
a
you
good
in a
way
relationship?
to talk
like,
about being an ally too, right? Like, is just
don't ever assume. Don't ever, like, if you want to say, like, if somebody tells you I just got engaged, instead of asking like, oh, well, what's his name, or like, what's your fiance like? Just use a generative term, like, what's your partner like? What's your fiance like? Are you in a relationship? That kind of thing, because like just the term boyfriend would turn me off to think, oh, this person is like closed-minded. So, and they probably weren't. It's just like so ingrained in society to use heteronormative language, but it just made me uncomfortable because I was like, well, now I can't say that I have a partner or that I'm in a same-sex relationship because they just assumed that I was straight. And now it seems like a bigger thing than it actually is. You know,
now you have to come out, right? Now it's like a thing. And I feel like that's like what we need to move towards, like as a society, and being an ally, even in the workplace and other in social settings as well, is never just to assume that somebody's a straight person or is queer. Because again, like I could be mass presenting and still decide to like date men. It happens. It happens. I'm not nothing myself in general, but like in general, other people, right? There are people that are non-binary, and so there's just so much more now that we have to be like aware of. And I think to be a good ally is to just always like keep an open mind about where people are and who they date and their identity in general,
and just making sure that you're not like you're kind of fixing your mindset to be more open and general, because it's hard. Like I feel like older people, maybe not with the younger generations, but like our age and older, they're very ingrained, and like we're all very ingrained in society to be like he and her and she and him, and it's hard to like switch that in your mind.
I even struggle with that now, like, right, to like even ask about pronouns and stuff. I haven't necessarily encountered that situation just yet, but like,
especially being from the South, like you're yes ma'am, yes sir.
Yeah.
Sometimes when I'm like on the phone,
been like in a restaurant prior or something where like people like will, you know, mispronounce what is it? Misgender me. There you go. I was like, there's a word.
Mispronoun.
Mispronoun.
Well, I don't want to say his name because it's a trigger. Your brother's ex-boyfriend, he was like very feminine, I guess, and we went to a dance class together because he was also a dancer. We went to the drive-thru at Wendy's, and the guy was like, oh yeah, yes ma'am, or I don't know what he said, like thank you ma'am or something, and he goes, it's sir. He like made this whole big deal, and I was like, I feel so uncomfortable.
Yeah, like for me, like anytime I've been misgendered, I literally just ignore it and like proceed to order.
I know, but that's like our conforming mindset, because that's our generation. Like he was a little bit younger than us, so I feel like he was very much Gen Z and like was like, no,
That's like something that we actually had like a workshop at work recently that like talked about that, and like people shared their stories. And there was a lady.
Oh yeah, you never told me about that.
There was a lady who was sharing about like her experience with her 15-year-old who's non-binary now, and like living in Texas. They actually picked up and moved to Colorado because the trans situation here was so terrible. Like, their child was literally getting bullied.
That's so sad.
They were scared, and I'm not sure if it actually happened to them, but that information we shared earlier about the CPS investigations happening for people's parents, trans parents that were supportive, they were like literally being accused of abuse because of it. So it was a really crappy situation.
It's hard in the South.
She mentioned, and she shared with us too, that she's like, you know, a lot of the groups that my child was attending, it was like evident that many of the children were struggling because they were coming from non-supportive families, and so many of them like struggle with their parents not supporting them or their decisions. And so it was just like a very hard thing to witness. And I think like that's kind of like the whole point of this episode, is not only to like talk about our experiences and like how it's like how queerness for us has been, but also like talking about like how you all can be an ally and not only like support friends and family, but also like just people that you don't know. That you know, may encounter.
I mean, anybody that you meet.
Yeah. And it's a very hard time right now too, because of, like I mentioned, or well, it gets politics season, right?
Yeah.
So
the day that this episode is releasing is like early voting day.
Day. Yeah.
So it can be like a touchy subject. I mean, even us just getting engaged and like posting about it, I was like, they're gonna come for us. They're gonna burn us at the stake.
But I know we're always out and about and like we'll hold hands for like 5 minutes, and we're like, let's not. We might get hate crimes.
Well, first of all, I'm not a hand holder. Well, okay,
no PDA,
but also hand holding is uncomfortable. Like, don't hold my hand. And then I'm like, ew, we're gonna get hate crimed. Like, we're just roommates.
We're just friends. I don't know what you're talking about. I'm straight. Have you seen those TikToks? He's not gay. He just likes to wear skirts because it helps him breathe.
Well, even in Hawaii, like after we got engaged, it was really dark. We're planning on somebody's part, but anyways.
Yadira. I'm just kidding.
You're gonna say that. I was like, she's gonna say Yadira. It's not Yadira.
It was both of us.
Anyways, where was I going with this? Oh, so the next day we went to a different beach because we were like, we want to take pictures or whatever, to post and like to obviously like send to people or whatever.
To hard launch
the relationship. And I was like, oh my God, we're going to get hate. Like, I feel uncomfortable now. And like, people are going to stare at us. Cause like, not only we're taking pictures, but like, we're a same sex couple and it's weird. But then when we were done and we were like walking back, these two ladies were on the beach in their little lawn chairs. And they were like, hey, did you get married or did you get engaged? And I was like, oh, we just got engaged. And then they said that they got married there 10 years ago. And I was like, oh, that's beautiful. Yeah. So supportive.
Very
so
supportive.
queer friendly.
And believe it or not, we did get a few like weird stares, but most people just like, I had people ask us if we wanted to take pictures at some point. We were like trying to take a picture of ourselves or something. But like,
when was that?
It was one night that we were at the beach. I can't really remember. The point being is like, there are a lot of supportive people out there, just as much as there is a lot of people who hate. So like, choose love.
Yeah, and as much as it sucks, like I do feel like
it's important.
Slowly but surely, society is changing. It's just taking a really long time for it to catch up.
Yeah.
Like I think in high school, I think back to like that time period, and us being engaged would have never even been a thing.
I wouldn't have even thought that far.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And look at us now.
Wow.
Like Bree's nephew. Wow.
Yeah.
That's his favorite word.
It's beautiful to feel like to come this far in a journey that it's been a long journey.
Yeah.
But anyways,
Don't cry again.
No, I'm not gonna cry. Anyways, we want to end the episode with the reminder that as politics come up, start thinking about how to support others, maybe even after election results, and just remember that identity and queerness like shouldn't be something that we're what is it called? Like,
Afraid of?
not afraid of, but like, it's not up for debate, right? Like, politics is what it is, but like, people's identity and people's like love for other people like shouldn't be up for debate. I think those are things that are part of somebody's individuality, and like we should support and really respect people in general and what they choose to do with their lives.
I love that. I just wanted to say love is love. And whatever journey you are on, whether you're like trying to come out or you've come out and you're struggling or whatever, you feel like it's not the right time, like your journey is your journey and there's no timeline, whether you come out at 13 or 26
or 30 or 45
or 45, like you're not doing anything wrong. So
yeah,
it is what it is. And it'll be okay.
We love you. This is a safe space for you.
Yeah.
So we'll see you guys on the next episode of You're Not Doing It Wrong.
Bye, guys.